Motherhood. 1 minute, you're mom of the year.
I love you, Mommy.
Then the next, not so much. From bath time to bullying, from potty training to puberty, parenting is full of challenges. But one thing is for certain, you are not alone. Welcome to Modern Mom Probs. I'm your host, author, mother, parenting expert, Tara Clark. Join me while we tackle today's modern mom problems. Alyssa Tucker, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. How are you?
I am great. So you are the brains behind the Instagram account Live from Snack Time. How did you get started with that?
So that's a great question. I am a teacher in New York City, and when I first started teaching, the kids were just saying such brilliant, hilarious, honest, like real questions and quotes, and I just felt like it needed to be shared. So it started as a Twitter, actually.
That makes sense. I love it. What year did you start? Because I feel like we probably got started around the same time.
Long time ago, 2015.
Yeah, that makes sense because I started my account in 2016, in the beginning of 2016. So that makes sense. I feel like they all kind of like came up together. Kids really do say the darndest things. Like, I know that was like a TV show from back in the day, but it's true.
Yeah, I mean, they are just constantly processing the world, in language, and it's our job. The real mission of the account is to listen to children. We can learn a lot from them, but it's also our job to help them understand the world. So me and my co-founder, Greg, we turned it into an Instagram. And he is not in the teaching space at all, but the fact that he was like, this needs to be shared on Instagram, like I want to partner with you. That helped me realize like, oh, this is more relatable than just a teacher, account.
Yeah.
So that's really how it was born.
What grade do you teach?
So now I am a learning specialist. I tutor privately, and it's mostly middle schoolers. When I started Live from Snack Time, it was kindergarten. And there was like a specific quote that kind of started it all. Kindergartners are probably the most honest, raw, and hilarious people on this planet.
Yeah, they definitely are. Like that 5-year-old, 6-year-old age is like really the sweet spot for honesty.
Right. Oh, because they have all their language, but they don't have the emotional capacity yet. So I find it fascinating.
It definitely is. Yeah, middle schools are like, that's like a whole nother vibe because I have a middle schooler. So I know that he's like night and day from where he was, obviously, in kindergarten. And the stories are different. The quotes are different,
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Just the other day, he turned to me and he was like, Mom, are you familiar with Duran Duran? I was like, yeah, buddy. And I put that on Threads and it like absolutely popped off because I think it resonated with so many people. And then people were like sharing stories about their kids saying like, hey, are you familiar with this band Metallica? Have you ever heard of Fall Out Boy? And it's like all this. And you're like, yeah, dude.
Yeah. I mean, I love the age. I feel like in middle school, they come in as babies and then they're leaving that year, or in my case, they're leaving my classroom and they're like kind of these little adults. It's the best. They're like learning who they are, what music they like, what food they actually like, everything.
Yeah, it is. It really is a sweet spot. If I could just like keep my son at like 12 forever, I would be so happy. But alas, that's just not the way that the world works. That's okay. I just keep rolling with the ages. But I do think between like, let's say 9 and 12 has really been like a very special, sweet spot.
I mean, that's really good to hear. I was just talking to a friend. I have 2 toddlers, and we were both getting sad about them just growing up, like not having babies anymore. But Another friend of mine was like, yeah, but every age comes something amazing. So, I mean, it sounds very corny, but like, I'm like
No,
mourning the loss of having babies,
but
you
it's
know?
true. Yes. No, that totally makes sense. I remember, I distinctly remember this when my son was a baby. In his bedroom, we had this bureau, which actually belonged to my great grandfather. So it was like super antique. And it had a mirror like above the dresser, right? And I remember always like looking in the mirror while I was holding my son. And like each month, obviously, he's growing bigger and bigger and bigger. And I remember like looking in it, maybe like the last time that I was actually like carrying him when he was, let's say, maybe 4, and like thinking like, oh my gosh, or I was sort of like measure him against my body, right? When he's like teeny tiny newborn to when he's a 3 or 4 year old. And I always like stop and think about our reflection in the mirror as I was holding them. So yes, I totally understand what you're saying about the concept of sort of mourning not having babies anymore. But I can tell you, it's great having big kids. It, like traveling with them is easy. Just day to day is easier. There is definitely a bittersweet part that I feel now of he's not a little kid anymore, you know, and you're on the cusp of having a teenager, and then you're on the cusp of having an adult, you know, God forbid. Not God forbid. I mean, it's going to happen one way or the other for you, but that's definitely something that is very omnipresent for me lately.
Yeah. The transitions, yeah, they're hard, but they're special. I mean, it's amazing, and it's also like sucks. All of it.
Yeah, a little bit of all of that. So you mentioned that you have 2 toddlers. Tell me more about them.
So it's kind of an insane story. So my husband and we struggled with infertility for a long time. I think it was almost 4 years. And we tried to have a baby. We tried IVF. We had all these, I think 5 IVF transfers. They all failed. We tried every single medication under the sun. I tried every medication under the sun. And nothing was working. And finally, my husband is like, I think we need to stop with the injections. We need to stop with all of these medications that are making you feel awful. And our doctor, who we feel so close to, she was like, you might want to start thinking about the surrogate route. You have all these healthy embryos. They're not working on your body. So my husband kind of took that advice and was like, Alyssa, I kind of feel like we should go down this path. And so we did. We found a surrogate who we absolutely loved. And the first transfer with her failed. And that's like really when I was at my lowest. And the second transfer worked. But because the first one failed, I continued with some of the oral medications. I was tracking, we were still trying. And then 9 days later, after we found out her transfer was positive. 9 days later, I found out I was pregnant. We did not do IVF. I stayed on some medications, I was tracking, but that was the extent of it. So our 2 kids, a boy and a girl, they actually wound up, they're 6 weeks apart. My son was early, my daughter was late. But gestationally, they were supposed to be 9 days apart.
That is amazing. What an amazing story.
It's nuts. I still can't believe it. They're 1.5, and I still look at them like, is this real?
Do people ask a lot of questions when they're together? Do they ask if they're twins? Like, what do you get? Like, what are some of the things that you hear?
I mean, everyone asks if they're twins. They look a lot alike. My mom is always like, oh, they're getting more and more similar. They look so much alike. I'm like, they are both our embryo.
Yeah, they're brother and sister. Right, exactly. You didn't just pick them up off the street corner.
Right, like crazier things have happened. Yes, they look alike. People that we don't know, we usually just say, yeah, they're twins. But if there are people that we know are going to be in our lives, we explain the story. But it's interesting that you ask that because we're planning to be very honest with them when they can understand that. And I have to start being more conscious about what I say because I don't want to confuse them. Um, so yeah, we call it, the term is actually Twiblings. There's a real term for this. Twin siblings, Twiblings.
Really? I
Mm-hmm.
never heard that. I have to Google that. Twiblings. So what's
Yeah.
the exact definition of that is two, I don't know, explain that.
So I believe it's two kids that are born this close in age, like very close in age,
Hmm.
closer than Irish twins.
Right.
But I'm not sure if it's specifically for two kids that are both like our embryo. Like I'm
Hmm.
not sure if it's the same, like if you adopt a child and then you get pregnant.
Hmm.
But I believe, yeah, it's two kids that are very close in age in one family that have the same genetics, but are not technically twins.
Right, right, right. At what age do you think that you're going to explain it to them?
So that's funny. Like I have a background in, child development, early childhood learning, so I'm constantly thinking about this. I think I'm in the process now, very delayed, but I'm making them each a baby book. And this will include. I was thinking like I have a baby book, my siblings have a baby book. Like I don't have this for my kids. I want to do it. So this will include like our surrogate and the whole process and all the sonograms. So I plan to do it like as soon as possible to kind of just normalize the language. Like you didn't grow in mommy's belly. We worked so hard to get you here. And yeah, we try to see our surrogate like a few times, I guess a year. They're only a year and a half, but
Right.
so she'll always be a part of our lives. So yeah, we hope to explain it to them soon.
That's so cool. That's so cool. Does she live locally? So like it's not hard to make it a point to see her?
She lives about an hour and a half away. Yeah.
That's amazing. How did you find her? Was it hard to find the right surrogate?
Yes. So I found her on Facebook actually. So when we were looking for a surrogate, the safest way to do it is through an agency. But the agencies will tell you, it's a 9 to 12 month wait. And then she has to be pregnant. So we were like, I was like, I'm not waiting another 2 years to have a baby. I'm not young. We had been trying for 4 years. So I joined all of these infertility and surrogate friendly Facebook groups. And she had been asking so many interesting questions in the group. I was like immediately attracted to her. And I explained this to my friends, like you almost have to like flirt, right? Like you want her, she was a hot commodity, right? Like if you're looking for a surrogate, it's not easy to find. So I'm like, I want her to like me. I want her to feel comfortable with me. I want to make sure I trust her. So it's like this dance, this weird dance. So my husband and I, we created a Google form with like all of these questions that were important to us. So every time I would find someone on Facebook that was like remotely fit the bill, I would send them the form and see if they really were a good fit. Because certain surrogates, they only want to work with people of a specific like demographic or religion, or only a straight couple, only a gay couple, or like they have parameters also, so you have to make sure you're a good fit.
Wow, that's interesting. I had never really considered much of the other side of that, like where she would be coming in saying like, I want to be doing it for a family that really aligns with her values as well. Because so often you hear about the couple going through this or the individual wanting to have a baby, but you don't always hear it sort of from like the surrogate side.
Yeah, I was definitely nervous because, some surrogates, they only want to work with cancer survivors or, like things like that. And I was like, wait, I don't have, yes, it had been devastating, but I didn't have a devastating story really to tell when I was hearing about other intended parents, they call them, these really horrific stories. And I was like, well, I don't identify with that. I hope a surrogate will give me a chance. I just had this like unexplained infertility and there was not much of like a story,
Yeah. No, that definitely makes sense. I had sort of a similar-ish kind of story. I mean, I could tell my story in like a whole hour's time, so I'm going to condense it just for you here. But we had 3 miscarriages, and each of those miscarriages, I got pregnant immediately. We tried, I got pregnant, tried and got pregnant, and then had, like I said, 3 miscarriages. Then we found out, I mean, this is, I'm using the condensed version of the story, but we went to a specialist and I found out that I had polyps. So I had the polyps removed, and it seems that those were likely causing that. However, then I had unexplained infertility after the polyp removal for like a whole nother year. And at that point, my husband and I were like, let's just stop for a year and reevaluate things and like live our lives. And at that point, we were living in New York City. And so we were like, let's just try to enjoy ourselves and get our mind off it. You know, we had a vacation in Italy, like all of those things. And then we decided to revisit it. And then we had 3 rounds of IUI, which on the 3rd round, it worked. And then we had my son. And that is the very condensed version of that story. But I do understand, because it was pregnancy loss and then unexplained infertility and then the IUIs. We were 1 step shy of IVF, which was so mind blowing, because we were like, it was working and then it wasn't working. And now we're talking about IVF. Like, we're like, what's happening here? I mean, we even had gotten to the point where we were like, maybe we'll adopt, maybe we'll just become childless. You know, like there were just so many different things that we were thinking of. And the IUI, especially the last round of that, was our last go at it. And it worked. I don't think that for us personally, surrogacy was ever on the table. I don't think that, because also too, like we had never done IVF at that point either. So I think that they're sort of similar in that standpoint, obviously. But yeah, we just like hadn't gotten there, hadn't quite crossed that threshold. But it might have been a different story if we had.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I could listen to these infertility stories like all day long. They all fascinate me so much. And some of my friends would say like, "Oh, but they almost feel bad. I know you went through so much more. So, you know," and then I'm like, no. All of these are valid. We've all experienced loss. They're all fascinating. They're all interesting, and they're all devastating. Yeah, but same here. I would get pregnant almost, it was literally like every other month. And my body would just reject the pregnancy. It's just so
devastating.
It's devastating. It's like fascinating and devastating.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. It was so hard, and it took me years to be able to speak about it. I mean, my son's 12 now, right? And I've had a podcast now for several years, but it took me a very long time to talk about it. At the time, we didn't share it with friends or family. Only a very, very small group of friends knew, probably like my 1 or 2 best friends. That's about it. I mean, now I'm sharing it publicly, so it's public knowledge. But at the time, my husband and I were just our own team on our own island dealing with this.
Same. Why do you think that is?
I think there's many reasons. For us, I knew that sharing it with our family would not have been helpful. So I think that's a personal decision for people if they, you know, choose to share it with their family or not share it with their family. 10 years ago, well, when we were really going through this was 15 years ago. So 15 years ago, the world and social media and everything obviously was in a very different state. So people were not talking about these topics publicly like we are now. And like, luckily, we do have these platforms and a voice to be able to share these stories. But 15 years ago, it was very taboo to speak about this stuff publicly.
Yeah.
Why do you think?
I was sharing a little bit in the beginning, and then it was like bad news after bad news after bad news. And it just, like my husband and I were like, we just don't want to share anymore. It's like exhausting. I also like couldn't take the pity. Like I'm not, and I didn't want anyone to like make comments like, oh, I don't know. I feel bad. I can't, talk about baby stuff with Alyssa. And I'm like, no, that's not true. Like, I'm so happy for the people, in my life that were experiencing it. I don't know. It just felt so awkward. I remember at one point I said to my parents, you don't need to have the right thing to say, but stop saying the wrong thing.
Yeah, I could see that. That makes sense. I have a friend who like has a divorce podcast, and she was saying that about divorce, which is obviously a separate topic altogether, but it was the same sort of concept of like, stop saying the wrong things. Yes, that's actually partly why I think my husband and I kept it to ourselves for that reason, is that we were doing it to protect ourselves and protect our own mental health at that point. And so unless you have folks that are extraordinarily understanding and compassionate and empathetic to a situation like that, it's probably better just to keep it to yourself. Unless, like I said, that was my own personal decision. That's not advice to give to everybody, but you know your own situation best.
For sure. There was some Facebook groups that like really got me through. There's one called Fertility Friends of Friends. And that like women would just post their stories, different medications, different therapists, just like all these different strategies, emotional strategies, that I felt like I really relied on some of those like Facebook groups. So,
yeah, I think that would be super, super helpful. Like I said, now that there are platforms and groups and all of that kind of stuff. 15 years ago, unfortunately, that wasn't the case. And so unless we really went out of our way to find, I would almost say like an in-person group or something, maybe set up from the fertility specialist clinic or something like that, like we would not have been able to find that on social media the same way.
Yeah, there is some, people talk about social media, like it could be such a horrible place, but I do have to admit, I feel like it always had my back.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree 1,000%. I wouldn't be here today if that wasn't the case. Right. And having a community and having a voice and allowing people to share their stories and share my story. So I am super, super pro online communities and setting up your own online village. So I am a huge proponent of that. And one book that was really helpful for me several years ago was Jessica Zucker's I Had a Miscarriage, because she was one of the leading voices for saying that publicly. Obviously, that's literally the name of her book. So she was very helpful in that. And you know what's a great podcast? I'm going to rep Ali Prato's podcast called Infertility AF. Or Infertile AF. I'm like, here I am misquoting it. Infertile AF. She lives in New Jersey. She is incredible. And she unfortunately suffered from secondary infertility. And she desperately, desperately wanted a second child. She has an amazing story. So everybody check out her podcast, Infertile AF. But she has an incredible story. And I'm happy that we now have the opportunity to share our stories and to feel confident enough to trust each other in holding space. I know people say that a lot, but in holding space for each other when we share these stories.
For sure. For sure. And I feel like I started to share more. Also, when you start sharing, I feel like then people open up. Well, oh, something similar happened to me, like I've been listening to your podcast for a while. I had no idea that you struggled with infertility. But yeah, I feel like once you start opening up and, people reciprocate that, which feels really good.
Yeah, it really does. It really does. It's interesting because, I just had my birthday 2 days ago, and thank you. Appreciate it. And my story for this journey actually starts on my birthday in 2009, because I first found out I had my first doctor's appointment on my birthday, the morning of my birthday. And that's when I found out that there was no heartbeat. And so, which was absolutely heartbreaking. My husband was away at a conference in Orlando, Florida. I went to work after that, finding out that there was no heartbeat. I had to schedule a DNC, and everyone's like, happy birthday, Tara, happy birthday, Tara. And meanwhile, I was like dying inside. So my 29th birthday was not so great, but that was a long time ago, 15, 16 years ago. So I'm not even thinking about that now. 16. Oh my God. Is that really 16 years ago? Holy cow. Wow. Anyway, time flies. But I do often sort of associate it with my birthday because, like I said, it sort of started, the journey started on my birthday 16 years ago. Holy cow. I cannot believe that it was that long ago. That's kind of wild, but yeah. And then actually even another one happened around my birthday too. It just kept happening around my birthday, which sucks if you think about it.
It sucks. And even though we're healed, from this and we've moved on and we have all these beautiful moments, it's like, you will never forget. You never forget how you were feeling.
Yeah.
Like when you found out something so horrific. And I explain it like we've all been through, loss, some sort of loss. But like when your own body is failing you, there is nothing like it, I don't think.
No, I agree, because it makes you question yourself. It makes you question everything. It makes you question your food. It makes you question, just everything, top to bottom, right? And so you're 1,000% right. I felt very grateful when my doctor had realized that it was polyps, and he was like, okay, let's remove those and then let's try again. But then again, super frustrated when you have unexplained infertility, because you're like, but it worked. It used to work. Why is it not working? It should be working now. So it was a lot. It was a lot, but I'm happy that is behind me and that I have a wonderful son. And I remember being at the infertility clinic early, like 6 a.m. in the morning, because those, I don't know if you're familiar, but like they open super, super early in the morning before you go to work. And we were there, it was probably like 6 a.m. or 6:30. And my husband and I literally were like pleading with the heavens. And we were like, if we just have this one healthy baby, we will never ask for anything ever again. And that was it. And we did. And so that, I like to tell that story because my cats are going crazy right now. You probably can't hear it, but they're like going absolutely buck wild. But which is crazy because like I never have them down here when I'm recording except for today, but they're just losing their minds. My cats are actually worse than having like lots of kids because my cats are just absolutely insane. And children listen, but my cats don't listen. Where was I going with that? But my husband and I were pleading with the heavens of like, please, we just want to have this one healthy baby. And we did. And then like I said, we never asked for anything ever again.
Yep. I've been there.
Where you're just like bargaining, it's that like, I guess it's maybe, I don't know, the 7 stages of grief or something like that. You're like in denial and you're bargaining and you're doing all those things. And that was definitely where we had been at one point, for sure.
Oh yeah. For sure. You try basically anything.
Okay. I want to ask you one question that I ask on all of my episodes. Alyssa, what do you think is the biggest modern mom problem right now?
So, as a new-ish mom and someone who has, a platform that kind of kids are the center, I feel like a modern mom problem right now is having to share everything, but not only just share everything, like have these big like curated moments and these birthday parties and like comparing everything, even milestones, with everyone else on the internet or everyone from high school that's also posting that you haven't seen in ages. So I think it's this idea of sharing and everything having to be perfect. With Live from Snack Time, we really try to stay away from that. Like, we try to really highlight these like authentic, like true, honest, raw moments. I mean, we post the most relatable or the most funny moments, you know, but it's this very clean, like there's no pictures or videos. It's just like white and font, and really so you can just kind of read the quote and do what you want with it, you know. But yeah, so I noticed that as a mom, my kids are, you know, toddlers, and I'm planning their birthday parties, and I'm dressing them, and there's a lot of pressure around that.
Yeah, I agree 1,000%. That is one of the biggest, most recurring mom problems that we hear. Like, if you listen to episodes, people will often say social media comparison. And it's a lot. It really is so hard to remove yourself from that hamster wheel, if you will, of like consuming the content, but then also trying to contribute and giving your kids the Pinterest worthy birthday parties that you see. And I've learned, the older that my son has gotten, is that I don't need to do those Pinterest worthy birthday parties. Sometimes less is more. Not even sometimes, often less is more. But we don't think that, because we get stuck in this like, oh, I need to be doing this and I need to be doing that. And really the question is like, who are you doing it for? Are you doing it for them, or are you doing it for yourself? And 9 times out of 10, we're kind of doing it for ourselves more than we're doing it for them, because they're too little to know at this point.
For sure.
Do you see some recurring themes on your account, like in snack time, let's say, you know, we're live from snack time. Are there some things that you see more often than others?
For sure. I think the most fascinating thing is that, so we get submissions from all over the world. So through a link on our website, people submit kids quotes. And kids around the same age, they're asking the same things in China that they're asking in Australia. So it's like this really unifying experience. So it's not like a specific topic that we're getting a lot, but it's like the developmental thoughts and milestones are pretty like on par all over the world. So part of the mission of Live from Snack Time is really to show like how much we really have in common. You know, like during the pandemic, it was a lot about, you know, being sick of your family and missing your friends, and like your teacher's really annoying, but you kind of miss her, like that kind of stuff, you know, that was across the board. But yeah, I mean, people send in things about everything from, you know, arts and crafts to food to TV shows, like literally everything.
Literally everything. Yeah. That was sort of the sense that I got, even because sometimes in one carousel, you'll have a lot of different topics, even within one carousel that sort of like has a theme around it.
Yeah, for sure.
I love it. I love it. So Alyssa, tell everyone where we can find you, where we could follow Live from Snack Time. I know you're on like all of the platforms, but tell us all the stuff.
Yes. So you can follow us. We are primarily on Instagram. That's where our largest following is. It's Live from Snack Time, LIVEFROM, Snack Time, SNACKTIME. You can also find us on Facebook. We're on X. We're branching out to TikTok. We just launched a bunch of gift items with some of our top quotes that we're so pumped about. So yeah, you can find us on the internet.
I love that. I love that. Are you on Threads yet?
Yes, we're on Threads also. Yeah. I should have mentioned that.
I love Threads. Threads is literally my favorite. Anybody that really knows me knows I'm constantly singing the praises of Threads. And my cat is coming to sit on my lap. This is a rare time. Jinx, you just sit here and be a good boy, okay? You know, be a good boy with my friend Alyssa. You're just going to sit nice. Okay, there we go. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to cuddle this cat, and I'll see you next time.
Okay, cool. Nice chatting with you. Bye,
It was
Tara.
wonderful chatting with you. Thanks.
Bye.
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 Thanks for listening to today's episode of Modern Mom Probs. I hope you enjoyed our deep dive in today's problem with me, your host, Tara Clark. Join me next time when I'll be interviewing another great guest and tackling another modern mom problem. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us a review and a rating. As always, you could head over to Modern Mom Probs on Instagram and give me a follow, or check out my book, Modern Mom Probs, A Survival Guide for 21st Century Mothers, available online wherever books are sold. Well, that's it for today. See you next time, folks.